Okay, folks, how you doing? Back again. And on the last video, I talked about the Ankhu, okay, who are the living, but not ordinary living, not the ordinary person. This is what I said, okay. But now, when he appealed, okay, to the living, the Ankhu, he could very well have been talking to everyday folks, but their Ba spirit is the Ankhu, too. It is the truly living within the human. So we hear people say, well, our true nature, our inner being. Well, they're talking about the Ba spirit, which too, it is the Ankhu in us. And so when it applies to the living, this appeal to the living, okay, he's talking about our inner spirit too. It's the difference between us and those priests who we refer to as the Ankhu is that the human, even though he has this Ba spirit, he is dominated by his Ka. Okay? And the Ka controls him. Most people live by their passions, which is the animal Ka. Most people live by the animal within them. Okay. And these passions, okay, by which people live, binds them to earth, the earthly ways, the earthly life, and not the heavenly ways, okay, the earthly ways, you see. And so the true appeal, then, as far as the everyday humans who contain a Ba but pay no attention to it, okay, the appeal is for them, us, the everyday folks, is to gain control and mastery over our animal nature. We've all heard this before, in one form or another. Okay. So this control gives us freedom. We hear people talking about spiritualists, whoever, talking about freedom or liberty. It is freedom from the control that our passions have over us. That's what they're talking about. That's where liberty comes from, you see, because it severs the chains that attaches us to earth and our animal nature, okay, the earthly nature. So it is said in the scripture, one must die in order to live. That's what they're talking about in that scripture. One must die in order to live. One must die to his animal nature, you see. And then he becomes one amongst the Ankhu, the truly living. Because our passions are blinding. And so we live a life with a veil over our faces because the passions are blind, we can't see straight. And so we're not considered really as the truly living. Okay? Because we're controlled by our passions. So what the person must do then is reconcile his passions. This war that goes on within people. Okay, inner conflict, dissatisfaction, etc. These are the things that must be overcome. All opposition forces must be reconciled. And then this takes us to the coming of the Ba spirit. You see, we're born into a world of mortality, okay, which we are. The ups and downs and so forth and so on. This is the mess that we're born into. But the Ba, you know, it separates from the child at birth. And so the child is with the Ka, which is our animal nature. And then the Ba, it wants to have nothing to do with it. It doesn't want to be, the Ka doesn't want to have to anything to do with the mortality, the ups and downs of life. But we must overcome the animal nature. It provides a foundation, and so we enter to a state of neutrality. Okay? And it provides a foundation for the Ba to come. Now, this gets us into, are we sure that the Ba will come? Yeah. It gets us into a law, which I have mentioned before, the law of necessity. The law of necessity. And it says that when an environment, for example, inner environment, outer environment, if the environment is such that a thing must be done. In other words, the thing cannot say no. It cannot reject. It cannot oppose. When the environment is such that prepared, okay, for an event to take place, that event out of necessity will take place, okay? So when a person overcomes his animal nature, his Ka, okay, and enters into a state of, let's say, neutrality, okay, where there's no opposition within him, the Ba will come. So I'm saying that the Ba will come out of necessity. It can't refuse once conditions are such that the Ba is attracted to the situation. Now, this sort of gets us into the Ba, or we'll say Ba metal. You see. So the human has plenty of metal in his body. We call them minerals, but just metal, plenty of metal in the human body. Okay. And so the Ba has metal too. They call it the Ba metal. Okay. So this neutrality, okay, that a person creates within himself by overcoming the animal nature sets a foundation, and it attracts the Ba. As metals attract metals, something like that. So it attracts the Ba, you see. And so the Ba can't refuse under these conditions. It must come. And when the Ba comes, the person enters into the state of the truly living, the Ankhu, you see. And this is what Scripture teaches. I might use different words, but this is what Scripture teaches. It teaches a human how to overcome his animal nature. And the promise is made. So they say the promised land. Okay. So we enter into the promised land. This is what is promised to the human when he overcomes his animal nature. They may call it the lower nature, animal nature, etc. Well, not many people are going to bother to do this because they enjoy satisfying the animal nature, or desires, etc. People want a new car, they might not need it. They want a new car, they want a house, they want this or that. People want to go on vacations. They're so controlled by their passions. Something in them says, well, you got to pay your mortgage. You got to pay those bills. Person, he's controlled by his animal nature. He said, wait a minute, I'm going on this vacation. That's it. And he goes. And if things aren't paid up, he goes through a little difficulty. And this is it. This is his hell. His passions are really going to work on him. He feels bad. He might be afraid, etc. This is it. This is all it is. Overcoming the animal nature, you wouldn't find himself in that position. And this is his hell. There's no hell after a person dies. Because when a person dies, all opposition forces are reconciled. That's it. So when a person dies, he becomes one with his Ankhu. You see. And if a person has prepared right for that after death, life after death, which we are going to live after death. If a person has prepared well for his future life, after death of the body, I'm saying, right? Okay? His will get him to that life that he is prepared for in this life. You see? The will is free of desire and passion. Some people may confuse desire with the will because we will things to be. And we also desire things to be, but they are different. The will functions at its best when desire has been overcome, when the animal nature has been overcome. The will functions. So the will is associated with the Ba. I really don't want to have anything to do with the animal nature. And so here's where we go back to the two brothers who fought and so forth and so on. The animal nature and the will. So when the God says that I have come to carry out the will of my Father, then he has overcome the animal nature. And so, we say, well, in the Christian tradition, they would say, well, this is the Christhood. So the Christ is saying that he has overcome the animal nature, and therefore he can carry out the will of the Father. Okay. So we talk about this Ba metal. Okay. That the minerals, we live in a physical world. That's it. There's no hocus pocus. Everything is physical, no matter how small the particles. It's physical. Okay. And this gets us into small particles like the atom. Okay. It is mentioned in the mythology, indirectly, okay? But we must split the atom, okay? And here the Ba comes through. That's just another way of putting it. Okay, folks, we'll get back to you with this Ba metal. Okay, and another god called Ta. We also mentioned Ta as Bes, another god. from Inner Africa. Okay, folks, talk to you later, and have a good one.